Hi, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful talk. My name is Shreya Srinivasan. I'm part of the Free the Pill Council with Advocates for Youth, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm also at SexEdu on TikTok and a student at UCLA, and I'm with the wonderful Kuhoo Verma. Kuhoo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
There, my name is Kuhoo. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, Kuhoo, you were recently in the movie Plan B, which follows a straight-laced high school student and her kind slacker best friend who, after a regrettable first sexual encounter, have 24 hours to hunt down a Plan B pill in America's heartland.
I had sex.
What?
You banged your crush at your own party? You are my hero.
Oh God, I was peeing and a condom fell out.
What?
A condom full of goo.
Let's get the Plan B pill.
Is there an alternative?
You mean a Plan B?
Could you talk about what led you to work on this project and what kind of research you did into the world of birth control access?
Sure, yeah. When I first received the breakdown, I was struck by just how immediately, number one, having a woman of color lead the film was just like incredible for me to read. And then secondly, they have a really wonderful way of having people, the audience and the consumers of this film, get really invested in these people's lives without kind of being preachy about it. You know, it's tough. Like, I feel like a lot of the youths understand why this stuff is important, but in kind of peddling out this movie and talking to people, a lot of people just didn't know about the importance of these things, which is insane for us to think about, but it's true. So they had a good way of being like, hey, be invested in these characters, and throughout that investment, you will understand why this is an important issue to spend time learning about.
I think the basis of the movie, involves these two young people trying to access the morning after pill. And like we know, young people need the autonomy to make decisions about their health. And I think something that made it so easy to get invested in these characters were the barriers that they were facing, even though they were hilarious at times. Could you talk about some of the barriers that your character faced in the movie while trying to access birth control?
So many. These two girls really went on a huge quest, which is the whole absurdism of the whole thing. You know, I'd like to say that it's hyperbolized, but it kind of isn't. Like the kind of hoops that they had to jump through. To start with, the pharmacist kind of invoking the conscience clause, which I didn't know about before doing this movie. I didn't know that there were certain states in America that the pharmacist or the person who's supposed to give you access to the birth control could literally just deny you that and deny giving it to you or selling it to you based on their own idea of what morality is. That's insane to me. I did not know that was a thing. So that's something that I found out.
Sorry, but I declined to offer you the Plan B pill. Have a nice day.
So that, the conscience clause, they came across that. Access to a car, basic access to money that allows you to even purchase it. Identification, if you don't have access to like a state ID or something like that. So you can't identify yourself. And kind of lastly, in the most climactic moment of the entire film, the Planned Parenthood location being shut down due to lack of government support and presumably protests.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was like so gut-wrenching. Out of all of those things, or maybe like something you didn't mention, what do you think the most shocking thing, the most shocking thing you learned about birth control access was while researching and preparing for your role?
It was the one that I mentioned earlier, the conscience clause, but also that it's not a very well-known thing that Plan B does not work on fat people, people, which I had no idea. And I have a couple fat liberation activist friends of mine who DM'd me about it as I was like researching for the movie. And yeah, it was so crazy to think about because you just don't hear that. People don't even advertise that. The manufacturers don't, any kind of infographic that I've heard about it or like read about it. It's just not a very well talked about thing, which is so dangerous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And some pharmacies don't even have Ella, which I think is the alternative for people over that weight range, but it's not carried, and like that population is not addressed to. I think that totally makes sense. And I appreciate you highlighting that. Another thing I'd love to talk about, one of the challenges that both the main characters in the movie faced were the expectations placed upon them by their parents. How do you think family and culture especially can affect access to sexual and reproductive healthcare and resources?
Yeah, I think it's so funny that like reproduction health and like reproduction safety is conflated with like sex and sexual, like just anything sexual taboo, because they're such different things actually. And the lack of education to parents and from parents, and the lack of conversation to and from parents around anything health and safety wise is really fascinating to me. The logic of, well, if we just don't talk about it, that's better than talking about it but still setting boundaries about it, which are two separate things. And more knowledge is always preferable. I definitely came from a family where like we didn't really talk about it. Like they kind of set the boundaries but were afraid to say the words, which doesn't teach me about safety at all. And therefore you go to the internet.
Yeah, what kind of impact do you hope to see Plan B and your character Sunny have? Or maybe you've already seen that impact.
It's really just the parents, honestly. The biggest thing, like I'm a little bit older, you know, than Sunny is, and I was wanting to see more and more parents just like be inspired by watching it to, oh, like maybe I can just talk to my kid. Maybe I can just like open up the conversation and it's not taboo to just talk about the safety and health aspect of these things. Yeah, and it's not a moral qualm. You don't have to get into the moral qualms of it. You can have different moral codes than your children. Nothing bad can come from just opening up a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. I really hope we're the generation to change that, especially for Indians and Indian kids.
Yeah, that's a huge thing too. Like it healed definitely a part of me, like middle school me, where I was so afraid to talk to my parents and ask them questions and just open up the conversation. Like kids also have, you know, as long as they feel safe, have the prerogative to also bring up the conversation, you know. And I definitely was too afraid to ever broach it. So it came way too late in my life. And I think watching this movie at that age would have given me the strength and courage to know that my parents are human too. They've made mistakes too. They've had times in their life when they needed help from their parents because they were just figuring it out. So I'm allowed to just ask.
Thank you. That's a really good way of putting it. I guess let's transition to, we've talked a lot about contraceptive access and the barriers that young people face, but the big question is, how do we fix this issue and change it for good? This past spring, Advocates for Youth launched the FreeThePill virtual store, which enters a world where birth control is available over the counter and on shelves without restrictions, which would be so good. Like that would fix everything for Sunny. So let's take a quick walk through the store and look at the world that we can absolutely make a reality. It's a cute little store. It could be like Walgreens, like CVS. Like we're not picky. It just is a store. And we can open up our phone. This is the personal care section, and it's just kind of talking about how, you know, the obvious young people deserve access to condoms, contraception, reproductive healthcare services, even if they're 17, you know, even if they're not 18. Birth control pills prevent unplanned pregnancies, but only, you know, if you have all these means, like you mentioned, even having a car can be something that can block off your access to birth control. But if you could just like walk up to a store like and buy it off the shelves without any sort of judgment, that would fix it. So this is kind of our introduction. Like even if you don't know anything about birth control and freeing the pill, I think this kind of song introduces it for you. Yeah, and I would love to show you. This is my favorite part of the entire store. Like the first time I saw it, I'm not sure if you're already familiar with this, but the FDA criteria for over-the-counter drugs. We can look at the phone alert first. So yeah, it's like a piece of art that talks about how the American College of, I always butcher this word, but gynecologists, all of these fun doctor people, they look into the evidence, and to be an over-the-counter medicine in America, you only need to, like the customer needs to be able to safely and effectively self-diagnose whatever ailment it is, self-treat it, and self-manage it. And if you look, like Tylenol and cough medicine, like they obviously all fit these things because you can get them over the counter, but birth control does too. And even though, you know, there's still like super severe side effects to taking a bunch of, you know, Tylenol, for example, birth control is like the only one that is still not over the counter.
Right.
And I think if more people, like I didn't know before I visited the store that you only need to fit those 3 things.
Yeah, this visual is so helpful. I never really thought about it this way. So it's really helpful to see those all in a line.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, it looks like a little pill box. It's so cute. That was me realizing that it looks like a pill box. That's how long it took me. So, yeah, now we have some virtual merch because we love that. Yeah, so for this part of the store is just talking about the petition, which is something I really want to highlight. We talked about ways to create change. Obviously, the store helps, the movie helps, all of these things talking about it. But Advocates for Youth is trying to create some really solid change, especially through a petition that we have to show President Biden that we have heard his promise to follow the science. It's something he talked about a lot in his campaign. And we think that means birth control pills should be available over the counter, covered by insurance, and free of restrictions. So I encourage everybody watching this to go ahead and sign the petition because it is one of the easiest and most effective ways that we can actually go out there and try to hash up for the pill.
Yes. I can't wait. I'm going to sign it right after this.
Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you so much, Kuhoo, for coming and talking and sharing, your experiences and opinions and all of that. I really appreciate it. I encourage all of you guys to go ahead and sign that petition like we talked about and have a happy World Contraception Day. So happy for, where we are and where we're going.
Thank you, Shriha. Y'all are amazing and doing incredible work.
Thank you so much.